on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his way.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Dylan.
Whoa.
How are you?
I feel wonderful.
Now, that's a damn lie. Work's kicking your ass as usual.
Yeah, I'm
this
over.
has not been your year as far as professionally.
No.
It's
No.
like they're bending you over and fucking you with no grease, bro.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're like, the only lube you're getting's blood.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
I mean,
thanks.
sure, you get all that extra like overtime, but it's not worth it.
I'm over shift
Is it
work.
Scoffing. You're scoffing
Yeah,
at
I
your
was scoffing.
overtime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just too much. It's too much. If I described what I do with my schedule, people are like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
we are trying to squeeze this episode in. You have to work an 18-hour shift tomorrow and then turn around Friday and work another 18-hour.
Yeah, and
In
that's
addition
flipping
to
from
your 12-hour shifts that you will
Yeah.
be working the
flipping yourself
the
from
filling
days
day. Yeah.
to nights and then back to days. Yeah, with 2 18-hour shifts to flip yourself around.
I mean, that's got to take a toll on you
Oh, baby.
physically. It
it's-
explains a lot about you mentally.
That's why I'm in such great shape, though. It does keep you physically fit. Right? Who needs a mentat with circadian rhythm? Who needs that?
Yeah, it's probably why you're fat.
It is part of the reason I'm extra fat. I've always been fat, but
You've
know,
always been fat?
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, but nobody wants to hear about that.
Yeah, sure they do.
No,
People are deeply concerned about you, Dylan.
I love them all, and you know this.
Well, I bring this up because it does interfere with our podcast schedule. And so I know that our listeners are very patient with us. But if our schedule at times seems wonky, or we're not consistent with the date we release, or maybe the time, we try as hard as we can. But sometimes it just doesn't work out because Dylan has a really fucked up work schedule.
Yeah, it's insane, and maybe it'll get better in the future. And we do try real hard to be consistent because we know as a podcast fans, not just true crime, but podcast period. We're always looking forward to our next episode, or if it's that Monday or whatever.
We're hungry for content.
Yes, so we do apologize at times we miss it, but I'm here, I'm in the trenches, and I'm ready to go to war.
Well, we really just need about 10,000 patrons, and you can quit your job and we can just podcast full time.
Yeah, so if you want all our episodes to drop on their proper date, just join us here at Patreon, right?
Patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast.
Yes.
Dylan, I am excited about this case.
I must say, I have been thinking about it since you first mentioned it, and the more few details you gave me during your research, I think it's going to be a great story.
I remember when this was in the news, when the headlines were all over the place about this case. Of course, you've already seen the title of it, so you know we're going to be talking about Rae Carruth today.
Yup.
I didn't know the details, and once I've been diving in, it's something else.
And we know that you went and got us all the deets. And so let's just get right into it.
He was super fast on the field, but he couldn't outrun the law.
Oh, my God.
Some people can't handle fame and success. Instead of enjoying being a professional athlete, making millions, they'd rather sell drugs or drive drunk. Maybe the celebrity status gets to their heads. They feel above the law. Or maybe they never knew how to exercise good judgment to begin with. Whatever it might be, few professional athletes have exceeded fame to become infamous.
Ooh.
In a 1995 interview, a young football player known as Rae Carruth told a reporter, quote, "No matter what I do, I want to be famous."
Okay.
Now the name Rae Carruth is synonymous with the likes of O.J. Simpson, Aaron Hernandez, or Oscar Pistorius.
Yes. So, me and you've discussed this before. It just blows our mind that these people, and it's not just in sports, you have it in, entertainment, and these people, they get a lot of money young.
Music,
Music,
actors.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess if I had all that huge money and fame when I was younger, I might not have handled it well either, right?
Probably not.
I might have done some dumb things, but some of these people, it's like they just can't let it go.
They just fuck it all up.
Yeah.
Professional athletes who committed heinous crimes, right? But when diving into this Rae Carruth story, I'm kind of left with more questions than answers, Dylan.
Now, from what I know of this story, it feels cut and dry. So it seems like maybe you've made some discoveries.
A little bit. Ray Lamar Wiggins was born January 20th, 1974 to parents Charles Wiggins and Theodore Sandridge in Sacramento, California. Now, his parents never married, and though Ray was given his father's surname, the boy wouldn't have much of a relationship with his dad. Charles was in the military serving overseas during most of Ray's childhood. Theodore married a man named Samuel Carruth soon after. Ray took the name of the man who raised him. When Ray was 14, his mother and stepfather divorced. As a single mother, Theodore settled in the Oak Park section of Sacramento, which is known as a dangerous area today. However, in the 1970s and 1980s, the area wasn't as riddled with drugs and violent crime. Theodore raised Ray along with his half-sister, Samel, and after a time, Ray was sent to live with relatives in Texas due to financial difficulties. Even when he lived with his mother, money was tight. When she worked at Costco, she would bring young Ray along to fetch shopping carts, always reminding her son that education was important. She would say, "You don't like getting all those shopping carts? Get an education. You won't get a good job, and you'll be doing this for the rest of your life."
So, yeah, welcome to your future if you don't stay in school.
She would tell him if he didn't go to college, he would end up doing a job like that for the rest of his life. Theodore eventually became a social worker. And by all accounts, Ray's childhood was not extraordinary. Theodore was a tough cookie who didn't want her son out in the streets. She kept a tight leash on him. Ray was a good kid, though, and he showed a competitive nature from a very early age. Ray's uncle, Sidney Sandridge, had shown promise as a potential NFL player. Sidney was only 7 years older than Ray, so along with these two other nephews, John and Mark, the four played sports together in the Oak Park neighborhood. Sandridge was a high school sports star as well on the football field as well as on the track.
Can we say Theodore?
Theodore.
Is that his mom's name?
Yes.
That's a very interesting name.
It is, right?
I mean, it's certainly unique.
But Sandridge actually had different plans for his life. He joined the U.S. Navy, set out on seeing the world. With athletic talent, which he began showing as young as 3, Theodore would often put Ray's name and the number 1 on the back of his T-shirts. He wanted to be number 1. So even as a little kid, he would be like, put my name on my shirt with a number 1.
That's pretty funny.
It is funny. He was ambitious and talented, and he attended Valley High School, where he was a star on the football field, just like his uncle had been. When he started slipping academically, Theodore met with his high school principal, and she told her son during this meeting, quote, "Go ahead and quit school. Go drive a forklift."
Yeah, I like his mom seems like a no nonsense kind of person. Like she's not going to sugarcoat it, trying to make you, blow smoke up your ass. She's just like basically she's saying you either will or you won't. Right?
Is that it, Dylan?
Yeah. So, I mean, either you're going to try to, have a good future and do as good as you can and go as far as you can in school, or you can just half-ass it and then the rest of your life's half-assed.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the reasons, she was very supportive of Ray's athletic ability because she knew that was a way to keep him out of trouble. Like if he focused all of his time and attention to playing sports with his uncle and his cousins, and he was playing, on these high school teams and middle school teams, whatever, he wasn't out in the streets doing shit he wasn't supposed to do. And she's a social worker. She's working with families who have lost children, in drive-by shootings, and parents whose kids have gone off to prison, the worst of the worst, drug addicts, neglected children, that kind of thing. So she knew what life could be like, and she really tried to protect her kids from that.
Yeah, and certainly a small percentage goes to the next level beyond college, the pro athletes. but many more students get to go through, get a scholarship for 4 years of college, an athletic scholarship, and then are able to get an education as well and a degree. So really, it's if you have a child who shows promise in any of this, it's actually can be a great thing to pursue, and like you said, keep him out of trouble, keep him occupied.
Yeah, your best friend's son
Yeah.
is only a sophomore
Yup.
and is already being recruited by colleges. They're looking at him.
Yeah, and
Seriously, as far as a football player. And that's exciting, right?
yeah, and his father has no illusions of how big his son is and all that, but he's like, if he gets through 4 years of college, I've won, right?
Exactly. Well, it was her tough love that led Rae to take school more seriously. Rae had never been an excellent student, but with his mother's urging, he began focusing more on making the grade. As soon as he arrived at Valley High School, the football coach was impressed. He saw a sophomore bolting around the track and asked, "Who is that?" Someone said, "That's Rae Carruth." And the coach immediately said, "He is not playing with the sophomores again."
Damn.
He is, this amazing player, runner. I want him on my team. So he was not only a football star, but he did run track and he played basketball, earning a spot on the All-American team with seniors across the country.
Damn.
By the end of his 4 years in high school, Carruth racked up 3,000 yards of total offense.
So he's a multi-sport standout, sounds like.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny when you think about these super ultra talented athletes, men and women, when they're in high school against just regular ass kids. You know what I mean? You take some of these monstrous linemen and stuff, and I could only imagine, playing some high school ball, and you line up against, across from some big 300
Well,
pound.
it's like that Sandra Bullock movie, The Blind Side.
Right.
It's based on the true story of the Panthers football player. Oh, I can't think of his.
Michael Orr.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That guy was gigantic.
Right.
Playing against like these little scrawny high school
I'm like,
kids.
oh my
And
God.
he's like a mountain, right?
I'm going to die.
Well, those who knew Rae said he was quiet, soft-spoken, and sometimes gave off the impression of being moody. He was guarded, but his athletic prowess made him popular, and he always had a host of male and female friends. Sorry, we just had to pause and let the puppy in the studio. I think you can hear him in the background whining.
Apparently he needs snuggles.
He does. He's very needy.
He's much like me.
Rae was twice voted homecoming king. As high school came to a close, Rae didn't have the grades for college. His GPA was only 2.0. Theodore asked what she needed to do to get her son to the next level. His coach suggested that Rae retake some classes so he might improve his GPA. He did retake the classes, and his efforts paid off. He earned a football scholarship to the University of Colorado.
Okay.
Good school,
Yeah.
known for its football program. Coaches at the University of Colorado recall Rae being different from the other recruits. So, most of the potential young players saw the visit to college's the campus as a big party.
Yeah, they're looking for the school with the most fun and parties and girls and guys to hang out with. Yeah.
But not Rae. He showed up with a briefcase and a checklist. He meticulously asked questions, approaching the visit as a professional situation.
He probably had to report back to mom.
Made quite an impression on the college coach and the recruiters because he was not the average football recruit. In college, he studied English and education. He was a double major, and he earned a B average. Rae wanted to become a screenwriter if football didn't work out. Drugs and alcohol were a big problem in Boulder, especially at the university, but Rae didn't partake. He was not a drinker, nor did he use drugs recreationally. He had an impressive college career, though he was redshirted his second year due to an injury, but came back as a junior to haul in 53 passes for 1,008 yards and 9 touchdowns.
That's a pretty good year for a receiver.
He was fire. He earned an All-American third-team selection and first-team pick at an All-Big 8 conference. He was named Colorado Buffalo MVP for offense, which I guess is good, right?
Well, yeah, he's the most valuable player.
I'm talking about football here.
I get it.
Like
Boy,
I know
I'm just-
something about it, and I don't know shit about football.
I'm
just
telling
so
you.
you know.
I'm telling you what, that was so cute. You tried so hard.
Did it sound convincing?
Oh yeah, if you hadn't said that, people would be like, "Man, she must watch. Be down with the pigskin all weekend."
I don't fucking know a thing about football, y'all. While in college, Rae was a role model for children. He befriended a young deaf boy, becoming a sort of mentor to the child. He even attended the boy's birthday party. After seeing a photo in the local newspaper where he's like eating cake and bowling with this kid, he ended up writing the child's parents saying how good it felt to be a role model and realized the important impact that he could have on children.
Wow, he sounds like a level-headed young person who has an idea what they want to do with their future and is not messing around.
By 1996, his senior year, Rae became obsessed with establishing himself as NFL material. He resolved to set himself up as a pace setter for college receivers. He did this by breaking his own personal record for the number of catches the previous year. In 1996's season, Rae pulled in 54 receptions for 1,116 yards of offense and added 8 touchdowns to his resume. Is that good?
Yeah. Oh no, that's stellar numbers for a wide receiver.
He also racked up another 103 yards of rushing by carrying the 5 more times for 2 touchdowns. I'm not really sure what that means.
So he rushed instead of being, yeah. And they handed the ball off to him and he ran the ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, you can tell I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think we should just dissect football lingo like for a whole episode on Patreon.
Okay. Well, he won the Zach Jordan Award for MVP on offense once again. Rae was only one of 2 players from Colorado who ever posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers are incredible. I mean, just so you know, these are really, really good numbers for his position.
I mean, it sounds like it.
And he's getting all these awards and he's standout. And it sounds like he was, I wasn't real familiar with his actual career, but it sounds like he's just killing it in college.
During Rae's freshman year at Colorado, he had returned home for a visit. While he was there, he happened to rekindle a romance from high school with his former off and on again girlfriend. Her name was Michelle Wright. She described the relationship as rocky, saying, quote, "He'd love me on Tuesday, then hate me on Wednesday."
Okay. That's
Sounds
just
like young love, right?
that's just a fun relationship to be in right there.
He was hard to know and moody. His jovial, quick wit was one thing, but then he would retreat into himself. Michelle never knew what side of Rae she was going to get. But on this trip home, Michelle became pregnant.
She just spontaneously became pregnant.
Yeah. That's how it works, Dylan. Do we have to have a birds and bees talk after this?
Those damn car seats. I've been warning people about those for years.
Rae wasn't happy about the pregnancy, and he asked Michelle to have an abortion because financially he couldn't afford a baby. He was a poor college student. However, Michelle insisted on keeping their son, who was born in 1994. After their son, Rae Jr., was born, Carruth didn't seem interested in being a father at all. He stopped visiting, eventually having nothing to do with the child. He had plenty of women to pursue in Boulder.
So he just wasn't into it, and he wasn't going to change his. Like I said, he had a idea where he wanted to go in his future, and it doesn't sound like it involved kids for him.
In 1993, Rae had met a slightly older woman named Dawn, who was an exotic dancer. The pair had a sexual relationship, and they hooked up over the next couple of years until about 1995. Now, it seemed during this time that Rae developed a taste for hanging out in strip clubs and liked the dancers. During his senior year, he met a high school senior named Amber Turner. The pair were smitten with one another. And there was a donor at the University of Colorado that had sponsored Rae with an income so he could afford to move off campus into an apartment where he could entertain these women. He lavished Amber with gifts, even offering her $500 a month as an allowance.
She showed me her boobies, mama.
He was dating a high schooler while Michelle was living with her mom in Sacramento, raising their baby alone.
Yeah, I mean that's a dick move, but
I'm-
you know he's young. I mean he's not the first young person to make a poor choice when it comes to and this is another reason to be careful about getting pregnant when you're young and you're not in a full on committed relationship and stuff. Because it might not work out the way you would like for it to.
Well, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details with it, but there was also a big scandal at the University of Colorado as far as these sponsors.
Well, I was about to say that's
And
illegal.
yeah, and like recruiting players and giving them money and
Yeah,
cars.
yeah.
And there was a big scandal that broke. And I remember when all of that was in the news back in the day. And, in my research, of course, I looked kind of into some of that again. But like I said, we're not going to talk too much about it. But that was super illegal, what was happening with Rae and this financial thing. And that scandal kind of broke after Rae had gone to school at UC. But it was a big problem. And like the NCAA? I mean, they totally frown upon this kind of thing.
Well, and I must say, I think it's even, in a right quick, it's a big conversation now. A lot of people say these athletes should get some kind of monetary gain because their likeness, their talent, and all that is, generating billions and billions of dollars in merchandise and money for the schools. And, they're one game or one injury away from blowing their knee out and, and never playing again or going on to the NFL. And many don't go to the NFL anyway. So, I mean, it kind of seems unfair. But, yeah, under their rules, you're not allowed to accept gifts and, the coach can't sneak around and promise your mom a house or a new car if you go there, but it happens anyway. And what happens is these boosters, these alumni, will be the money people who kind of slide money around to the athletes. So the coaching staff typically tries to not be involved in it. But it's totally against the rules the way they are now.
Right. I mean, and I understand that, and I've heard that argument. Well, these athletes are playing and making money for these schools and blah, blah, blah. But if they're there on a full scholarship, it's like that's your fucking payment. Is you're getting like a damn $80,000 college education or more for free.
Well, there's that,
you
you should make the most of that. But, you could set up some kind of a growing trust or something, that might help some of these men and women, as they get older, because they did generate all this revenue. I mean, it would seem fair to something to be in place, at least full insurance or something.
Are we going to argue about this?
No,
because I disagree.
Well, no, but they
I
are
think we
getting
should just disband college athletics altogether. You're there for an education. It's not a sporting event.
Well, that's the bread of the circus, honey. All the entertainment and this. I mean, we can talk about that. That's our modern day Coliseum, the gladiators.
I think it's ridiculous.
Keep the mob entertained while you. What happened to me earlier? While you get dry fucked.
I don't really like
in your anus
sports, so I'm just like
with blood lube.
I like basketball.
Let's go.
Then after his last season playing at Colorado, Rae impatiently awaited for a letter to arrive from the NFL. He kept in peak condition physically, focusing on his one goal, to play professional football. He was invited to the NFL Combine, which is an invite-only event for top talent.
It's Combine.
Combine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically when they some people have drawn parallels to this of the times during slavery when they stood the slaves up on
I was going to get
looked
into
at
the details of it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
will you just let me explain what it is without interrupting me?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, it's an invite-only event for top talent. They're brought to a site where they're met by coaches, scouts, team doctors, who can get an up-close look at these potential NFL draft candidates. During the 5-day event, anywhere from 300 to 500 prospects go through rigorous physical exams and athletic trials. They measure agility, strength, speed. The whole process is almost like a candidate being enlisted into the military. In particular, scouts look for speed. So anyone who can run the 40-yard dash in a few seconds is like, this is our dude, right? And Rae wasn't a big guy. He was only 5'11" and weighed less than 200 pounds, but he was lightning fast. And most NFL wide receivers are at least 6'3". So by NFL standards, Rae's just a little guy.
Yeah, but he's fast.
He is so fast. So at this NFL Combine, he nailed the 40 in 4.7 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean anywhere around a 4.4 through a 4.7 is just blazing.
During the mental evaluation, he passed with flying colors. Nothing indicated that he had any mental instability. He was called a fast guy with good blocking effort, but not a killer. A statement which would prove ironic later.
Oh my gosh.
With NFL seemingly on the horizon for Rae, Michelle filed for child support in a California court. She asked for $3,000 a month plus a match to Rae Jr.'s trust fund. He fought the suit, contesting the child's paternity, but a blood test revealed he was, in fact, the father.
You, Rae, are the father.
You are the baby daddy. Rae thought the $5,500 a month that they eventually would settle on was completely unrealistic. He didn't believe a 2-year-old child needed that kind of money, perhaps because he had not grown up with that kind of money and he had never had a job earning that amount of money before.
So, now is he in the NFL now?
He hasn't even been drafted yet. This is just...
Then what pay scale are they going off of?
I don't know.
I mean, what income does he have that they're basing this on?
I don't know.
Because, I mean, I'm sorry, there's no 2-year-old in the world that's ever needed $5,500 a month. Okay?
Though he agreed to come back for visits with his son, Rae rarely saw the boy and had little to do with him. He just was not interested in being a father. The 1997 NFL draft began with first pick going to the St. Louis Rams. They chose Orlando Pace from Ohio State. His signing bonus was $6.3 million.
Damn.
So how this works is like you get signed to a contract. Like, hey, Dylan, let's say we're going to give you $2 million for 2 years, but we're going to give you a signing bonus of like $1.3 million. So you would get that signing bonus like up front. That's just like cash in hand for you. And
Right.
then you're going to get your regular pay, you know, of whatever that $2 million would come out to be like per game.
Oh, yeah, these contracts can be very complicated, full of incentives. If you lose a little weight, if you're like a lineman, or if you do this, if you make the playoffs, you know, all these things that can make you more money or lose you money.
Juiced you up.
But yeah, the signing bonus is a big thing. Sound like a huge signing bonus they gave Orlando Pace there, because that's cash up front.
Yeah.
That way, if you get injured later or, you know, it just doesn't work out, you've already got that money.
Exactly. So you can imagine Ray's excitement as he sat down with his family in his aunt's living room, waiting for what might come. The first wide receiver chosen was Ike Hilliard by the New York Giants, and Ray's family was super disappointed. How could they pick Hilliard over Rae? And they were just like, what the fuck, man? Now, eventually the Carolina Panthers phoned Rae to ask if he'd be interested in coming to Charlotte or if he had his heart set on another team. The announcement was made on television. His contract was $3.7 million for 4 years. He would average about $19,000 a week after taxes.
Damn.
So he was given a $1.3 million signing bonus, which left him with about $780,000 after taxes.
See, I think a lot of people miss that this is these guys' jobs, and they literally get a paycheck every week, or, you know, however it's set up. Huge paychecks.
Now
But not all players, you know, have these huge contracts. Some guys are just barely making the team and just happy to be there, but they still might be making a couple of $100,000 a year or something, whatever it is.
Right. Well, the first thing Rae did was buy his mama a $150,000 house. He bought his girlfriend Amber a nearly new Lexus. A few days later, Amber and Rae flew to Charlotte to begin their lives together. In Charlotte, Rae bought a red brick colonial with white trim and a large bay window for $234,000, along with a Ford Expedition and a red Mercedes.
Okay, so he's got all his pieces. He's got his house, his cars.
Rae found life in Charlotte different. Most of his teammates were married men, they had families, and they viewed football as a job. Unlike Colorado, where the guys wanted to hang out and play video games, these men went to classes at night or spent time with their families. At first, Rae and Amber were kind of living a quiet life. Then Rae brought his cousin Tiffany to live with them. Since her family had taken care of Rae during his childhood when he had lived with them in Texas, he had offered to pay for Tiffany's tuition, kind of as like a thank you. And since her family lived in Texas. She had to move in with him in Charlotte. And he also invested money with William Tank Black, a former NFL player,
Okay.
into a company called Cash for Titles. It was a loan company. And Rae would end up losing a lot of money with that investment,
So it was a poor business decision.
which we'll get into. But this guy, William Tank Black, now I don't know a lot about him. He was a former NFL player, and he was like the spokesman for this Cash for Titles company and recruited like a lot of NFL players in on this. It turns out it's a Ponzi scheme, and we'll talk more about that later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, Rae's college talents made the transition from the university to professional football pretty easily. Normally, it takes a wide receiver a few years to be consistent. But he started in 14 games, caught 44 receptions, and scored 4 touchdowns. For a rookie, his performance was outstanding, earning him a Rookie of the Year award for wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, and they say that it just gets faster, from high school to college, the game's faster, to the NFL, it's way faster. And guess what? Rae's fast. So it sounds like he fit right in. How'd you like that?
Yeah.
He fit right in, and that's an incredible season for a rookie wide receiver, and it sounds like he didn't miss a beat.
However, things with Amber had started to sour. He had intentions of bringing her to Charlotte, where they would be married and build a life together. But that wasn't working out. Rae found he was the center of attention among many young ladies. And let's face it, he was a handsome guy. I can see why all the women flocked to Rae.
Well, he got a handsome pro
He was
athlete.
hot.
He's in shape. He's got a little money in his pocket. You know what I mean? Come on. I want to date Rae Carruth.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not now, but maybe maybe we wouldn't want to date him back then when you hear the whole story. So Amber felt he was being unfaithful because he's being lavished with attention everywhere they go. And there's also, just in my research, like how musicians have groupies, pro athletes have these groupies too.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of these young women that are very attractive, and they kind of latch on to pro athletes. They show up to all the events, they befriend them, they come to the parties to mingle, and a lot of their intention is, I'm going to land a pro athlete, I'm going to get my hooks in the sky, we're going to get married.
Yeah, they're trying to meet a pro athlete. It doesn't just happen, where they happen.
I'm going to be a trophy wife.
I'm going to be a trophy wife, or some even, I hate to say it, but go so far as, well, you've seen what, to have a child, get pregnant by a pro athlete and get some exorbitant amount of child support for the rest of the child's life. And, it kind of sets them up. Think about it.
Kanye West has an entire song devoted to the subject.
Well, imagine if Rae's just starting out in the, what if you get with somebody who signed a damn $80 million 5-year deal? What's your damn, my God, you could be getting $19,000, $20,000 a month or something child support. You're set for life. And I'm not saying all women do that, but some do.
You know what? Good for them.
And
if I was hot, right, and gorgeous and young, and why not? That's a job in itself, all that high maintenance and upkeep.
You are all those things, but you found an ex-fencer.
I might have been when I was like 20.
/ paper maker.
No, I'm just like a frumpy, middle-aged woman who wears a lot of sweatpants and sometimes puts on goth makeup. I don't know. Okay.
and then decides not to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, can we just eat some snacks instead? All right, so Amber felt like, he's getting all this attention, he's being unfaithful, and Rae encouraged Amber to seek higher education so she could get a job and contribute to their household. He even offered to pay for it. He told her she should be thinking along the lines of being a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe like a computer programmer. But Amber hadn't grown up with the financial hardships that Rae had grown up with, and she just wasn't interested. After all, she's only 18. Her class attendance for the general education stuff was very low. She had become accustomed to sharing Rae's bank account and living well. Her dreams were to become a model, an actress, or maybe a fashion designer. So Rae was becoming disillusioned with this relationship. He saw it as like he's doing everything he could to become the best on the field, while his girlfriend is doing very little to better herself.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I guess in in Ray's mind, that's what he had to put his mind to it. Lots of hard work, training. It didn't just happen overnight. To be performing at this level, and I guess maybe just wants her to do that for herself. To maybe enrich herself, give her something to do. So she's not bored.
Well, and I think he was thinking in, like, long term. Like, I don't want to keep you up forever. Like, you should contribute to our household as well. If we're going to be serious and be in a relationship, I shouldn't have to pay all the bills. Like, you should get a job and contribute and have your own money and have your own stuff. I mean, I think that's, not a bad thing. He's right.
I get a job at the convenience store, be like, Ray, I'll take care of the cable bill.
Exactly right.
just keep the rest of it coming, bud.
I will buy snacks, Ray.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, this is kind of crazy, Dylan. They go back to Colorado together, and he leaves her there.
Okay.
At her mama's house.
So it seems the tension in the relationship is ramped up a little.
When he returns home to Charlotte, Ray changes his phone number and the locks on the door. He never actually broke up with Amber because confrontation was never Ray's thing.
So he's just like, okay, I'll see you later. Leaves her there with Mom and goes back and changes the locks in his number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that work?
I guess.
I'm going to guess that fresh locks are not going to stop you from coming back to the house.
Me?
No.
Well, no, it's half my house too.
Well, now you're busting in.
I know how to climb through the window. I know the secret window.
Oh, God.
Well, she wouldn't let it go. Amber called his cousin, his mama, and eventually the wives of other team players. Now, eventually, he told her, like, we're not going to be together. And by now, Ray had realized, I'm young and, I want to sow my wild oats. And he was finding companionship in other women. Amber would later tell the media that Ray forced her to have 2 abortions when she'd become pregnant during their relationship. He resented paying child support to his first son and didn't want to be financially responsible for another baby.
Well, then you don't have sex.
We're going to talk more about that later as well.
Because a child can be the end result of having sex. So,
oh my gosh, can it?
Well, yeah.
We've never had this talk before.
Shoot.
You've been leading me astray.
Oh, no. No, you definitely can't have, we can't have babies together.
You were just like, it's okay, girl, lay still. Shh.
Or you'd have like 10 of them already in 3 years.
Oh, gosh.
I was soaking in it.
Ew.
Yeah, baby.
Please don't be gross.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a lot of female listeners, and they probably don't want to hear that. You're disgusting.
Let's say we had a lot of snuggles.
Just shut up,
Lots of
Dylan.
snuggles.
Just swallow your head. Okay?
Speaking of head.
You're not gonna get any if you
Let's
keep
go.
on.
Let's go. Let's go.
So Ray is actively enjoying Charlotte's social scene. He made friends with some of the other players, but he avoided the spotlight. Ray did not like speaking to the media and wanted to maintain some sense of privacy. It was on a summer day in June of 1998 that Ray attended a pool party at his friend Ernie Mills' house. Wives and families of the players made up the party along with football team members, but there were also several unmarried, attractive women at the party.
Yeah, don't say.
Cherica Adams happened to be sitting in the Mills family room as guests arrived. Ray came in with another player who happened to know this beautiful young woman. The pair were introduced and immediately began a conversation. Cherica Lavinia Adams was born in June of 1975 in Kings Mountain, North Carolina.
Oh, go Kings Mountain.
It's close to where you were raised up, Dylan.
I was down that way.
Yeah. Well, her parents were a high school student named Sandra Adams and a bus driver named Jeff Mooney. And actually, Sandra explained that back at that time, they allowed students to drive buses.
I remember the tail end of that.
Yeah. My dad, when he was a senior in high school, drove a school bus, right? And that's how she met this guy, Jeff. And so he was like a little bit older than her, so she's like a 17-year-old high school student. But she's driving a bus, he's driving a bus, sparks fly. The pair dated briefly, but never married. Cherica was raised mostly by her grandparents, Jack and Virginia. Her grandparents were farmers and deeply religious. Her nickname was Cookie because she was so sweet.
Oh.
And I thought this was interesting. Sandra was telling a newspaper reporter out of Charlotte that she got the name Cherica because she was a big Cher fan.
Nice.
Yeah. She loved Sonny and Cher. But she didn't want to just straight up name her Cher. So she thought Cherica.
She had a Eureka. Cherica.
Well, actually, she almost named her Eureka. Yes. After the vacuum cleaner, she liked the name Eureka, but then she was like, I don't want my daughter associated with like dust and grime. But she took the Ika. It's so funny you said that, Dylan, because she added the Ika and got Cherica.
Wow.
It's a true story. How'd you know that?
That's what I'm here for.
Did you research that?
No.
Of course you didn't. You never do.
Well, it was her Eureka moment. Feel me?
Cherica lived with her grandparents until she was like 8 or 9. Then she moved to Charlotte with Sandra. Cherica was stunning. Everywhere the girl went, she turned heads. At West Charlotte High School, she was a member of the dance team. Cherica earned money babysitting, but eventually she was kind of able to land a few modeling gigs around Charlotte. And later she even appeared as an extra in the movie House Party 3.
Wow, dude.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you remember those movies?
She's made it.
House Party?
I watched the first one, but I don't think I
It was
bothered
like
with.
Kid and Play, right?
Yeah, I didn't bother with 2 and 3.
I think I saw House Party, but it's been so long.
Man,
I love those Kid and Play movies though back in the day.
yeah, they had their time, but I was just like the whole time I would see Kid and Play, and I would just like.
Was it in House Party? His name was Blaze Brown.
I'm
or
like,
something?
how are these dudes making it? I mean, let's be honest, guys. They're kind of corny for real.
Well, yeah, but that's what's so great about them.
That time was corny though, so they fit right
It
in.
was a super corny time. Fashion was corny.
Gosh.
Like those fucking Bobby Brown shine shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Or all
Those
the
little shiny shoes. Hammer pants.
All the bright colors and stuff.
Spandex. You know,
The
like
fall leather jackets with the big bright primary colors
or
all
the
over
big
them.
8-ball on the
Oh,
back.
gee.
Like salt and pepper.
Dude,
Wear.
that was the shit.
Yeah, but you had one of those, didn't you?
I would have gotten one.
You wish you had one?
Yeah.
I'm going to get you one for Christmas.
I want a Charlotte Hornets starter jacket.
That's what I want. That's what I want, bitch. You can't steal what I want. I've already told you that's what I want.
Man, I wanted one of those back in the day.
I did too.
Larry Johnson, Grandmama, all them was playing. Alonzo Mourning.
I was a really big Boston Celtics fan, though.
Okay.
Well,
Celtics
I'm
are
saying I
cool.
like the Charlotte Hornets, but I was like a big Boston Celtics fan in the 80s.
Right?
Right? Okay, anyway, on with this. So, Cherica worked as a babysitter for 2 NBA players who worked for the Charlotte Hornets, actually. Dell Curry and Muggsy Bogues.
Boo, but dude, they was on there with Larry Johnson and them.
And then
That's Alonzo. That's the Charlotte Hornets I'm talking about.
Did James Worthy play for the Hornets?
No, he was I want to say he was a Bull.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
Well, he lived in Gastonia.
Okay.
Well, his mama did. I got a whole story about seeing him washing his mama's car.
Really?
Yeah.
James Worthy
Yeah.
washing his mama's car.
Yeah, she lived in the same. So my mom had this like long-term boyfriend, like my whole like probably 15 years of my life. Who's like my stepdad.
Yeah, you said his people had some money, right?
Yeah, they did, and they lived in this very nice neighborhood. And James Worthy's mama lived in that neighborhood. He bought her this big house, and she had like this really nice Cadillac and stuff. And one day we were visiting and he was out there washing his mama's car and he was bent over, and just like bent over, the man was like a normal sized dude. And then when he stood up, it was like a fucking giant.
Oh, yeah.
And I was having like a fangirl moment as we're driving by, like, oh my God, James Worthy. Anyway.
I think, you see any of these athletes off the field away from other people who are big like them, and you're like, oh my God. I think it's even more shocking when you see basketball players, because nobody if you're on the court, you're short if you're 6'6", you know what I mean, or whatever, and just they step off the court and they're just all of them. You're just like, oh my God,
Yeah, exactly.
they're huge.
Yeah, it's something
Huge.
else. And I'm short, so anybody
Oh
is
my
taller
God.
than me. But when I see somebody who's like over 6 foot tall, I'm like, they're a fucking giant to me.
Their crotch would be right in your face.
Shut up.
At least I said crotch.
Well, all my baby daddies are over 6 feet tall. Don't
Yeah, I know their crotch was in your
they?
face.
Really, the shortest guy I've ever dated.
You a damn lie.
Okay.
Solid 6 foot even.
Let's get. He's like 5'11", guys.
You're a
He
damn.
always says he's 6 feet tall. He's not. I think that's a lie.
We put the tape on it. We put the tapes don't lie.
Yeah, they don't, Dylan.
No, centimeters is centimeters.
Just
you know,
like that 6 inches is not exactly 6 inches. Anyway, okay. So she had a short-lived internship with the Carolina Panthers. Cherica attended Winston-Salem State University, but she dropped out after 2 years. She just realized college wasn't really like her thing. She studied communications while she was there. And like I said, it wasn't really her thing. It was expensive. She didn't want to rack up a huge debt, and her family was not wealthy. So she was having to like foot a lot of this college bill on her own.
so she's like, I'm not feeling it, so why am I even wasting my time and money on this?
Yeah, so instead of getting deeper into debt, she left school in hopes of pursuing a career in real estate. Her brother had a rap group, which Cherica began managing. She even created an entertainment company, like hoping to manage some different, musical acts,
Okay.
entertainment acts. Cherica was described as a person very interested in personal success. She often wrote inspirational notes to herself and attached them to the mirror. So I just imagine she's in front of the mirror like, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you.
I was going to say, that always reminds me of that skit.
That's what it reminds me of, too. Of course, maybe if we were more, involved in, like, having some daily affirmations, maybe we would be more successful.
Maybe I need to try positive affirmations, because my morning routine is look in the mirror and be like, man, fuck this shit.
That's exactly what your daily,
Man,
half asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is some bullshit.
He's on autopilot.
I'm not
in the
feeling
morning.
this.
Yeah.
I'm quitting. I threaten to quit every day.
I know he'll be like, fuck this, I'm going to stay in bed, I'm going into work. And then like 2 minutes later, he gets up.
It's time to make the donuts.
Begrudgingly. She also hung out among the social circles of professional athletes. Cherica made friends within the sports world and sometimes traveled out of town to attend games. Cherica was known to have dated Larry Johnson of the New York Knicks when he was in Charlotte for games. But all the traveling and working those certain social circles required money.
It's true.
So Cherica decided to take a job working at the Diamond Club, which was a strip club in Charlotte. Though she had been brought up in a deeply religious household, Cherica explained to her mother that dancing was a means to an end. Within a few months, she should have enough money to buy herself a condo.
Damn.
Well, she was looking at it like, she's a good girl. She's not a drinker. She's not doing drugs. She's doing real estate. She has a day job, but she saw this as like, I'm going to stack this cash and I'm going to buy a fucking house. I'm going to buy myself a condo.
Well, I mean,
Because again, she's very goal oriented. She's a go-getter.
Yeah, you go into a situation like that, I think you need to, it's best if you do have these, laid out, well thought out plans and have a goal in mind and stick to it and don't get sidetracked. But, oftentimes people do get sidetracked with the fast money, the maybe drugs or the partying, hanging out.
My derby wife.
The weird hours.
When I played roller derby, my derby wife, she had been an exotic dancer.
Ooh.
In her 20s, when she was a young woman. And she talked about that. She was like, I made so much money and I just blew it.
Yup.
Wasted it. Clothes, shoes, fast money, drugs, partying.
Well, they say easy come, easy go, right?
Yeah. And she's like, man, if only I had taken that money and invested it or bought myself a house. Yeah. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people, not only in the, exotic dancing industry, but any position where you're just making fast cash.
Man, if you can go make $800, $1,000, $1,200 in a night, it doesn't. You don't think about spending money. You're just like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's stripping or drugs or any like you said, anything that makes you quick money. It's like the money doesn't mean as much to you because you can get more of it easily.
Well, and I also think when we're young, we don't have this idea that we're ever going to be older.
No.
We're going to be young forever.
Well,
we're so naive, right? And youth is so wasted on the young.
I was telling you the other night that I had a pocket full of cash, making $400 or $500 cash every week back in the day when that meant, a little more, the buying power of the dollar and all. And I just blew it. If I'd have paid myself $50 a month, even in just a normal, regular 401k for myself, I would, have hundreds of thousands of dollars now.
You think so?
Well, yeah.
I can't do math.
Me neither, but that's what they tell me. That's what my people tell me.
Okay.
You would have money, but you don't.
Well, Cherica became Sienna on stage and danced only on Friday and Saturday nights. The rest of the week, she continued her career in real estate, mostly working at model homes, meeting and greeting potential buyers.
Oh, wow. So they just put pretty young, attractive women in their model homes?
Well, why not?
Oh, okay. I'd be like, yeah.
You would be more likely to buy something from somebody who is pretty than somebody who looked like a fucking troll under a bridge?
No, I'm there. I don't care. I'm just looking at the home. I'm all about the bones of the house.
I don't believe it.
It's true.
I'm telling you, Dylan, if you go to the used car lot, some hot, sweaty gentleman walks up with like a gold chain and like a loaf of chest hair, right?
Yeah.
And he all grins at you. Maybe he's got like the Burt Reynolds hair from Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
And he's all like, I'm going to get you in this 1984 Ford Tempo. Dylan's like, sold. Because sex sells, Dylan.
Let's write this thing up and go.
You'd fall for it. Well, in the weeks ahead, Cherica and Rae began hanging out. Both had busy lives and were career-minded, so they didn't have a lot of time to date. Cherica even moved to Atlanta for a few months. And during his first game of the 1998 season against the Atlanta Falcons, Rae sustained an injury. He had a broken bone in his right foot, which required immediate surgery. He would be sidelined for an undetermined amount of time. He missed 7 games, and when he suited up again, it was as a substitute, not a starter. However, his first return game against the 49ers was a disaster. It was apparent that he'd been brought back too quickly with his foot. It was not entirely healed up. Rae was stuck on the bench for the rest of the game. This rattled the young player. He had free time on his hands, and that's when in February of 1999, he managed to reconnect with Cherica after seeing her at the strip club. He had gone in for a friend's birthday party, saw her on stage, was like, oh yeah, I remember you. And so the rest is history. The end. I'm just kidding. Well, the pair proceeded to have 5 sexual encounters.
Oh, 5? Wow.
The relationship seemed to be blossoming at first. Rae was attentive. He took her out to fancy dinners. And he was kind of everything she'd been looking for. He was handsome, intelligent, successful. But Rae wasn't fully invested in the relationship. He was still seeing other women. And things seemed to cool from March to April. So this relationship was like very quick-lived.
So it just had its moment. It was all sweet at first, but then, of course, Rae's still young and sowing those wild oats, as you call them, and just not into monogamy, it doesn't sound like.
By May, it seemed as if the relationship had fizzled out entirely. It was also in May that Cherica told him she had something to discuss.
Oh, God.
Cherica told a friend to pass the news on to Rae because she was not able to reach him. She had missed a period and a home pregnancy test was positive.
Damn it.
However, Rae ignored her calls. By now, he had begun a relationship with a woman named Candace Smith that he'd met the year before. Candace was a waitress at Red Lobster, but like Cherica, moonlighted as an exotic dancer. Candace was realistic about her relationship with Rae. She knew he had other women in heavy rotation, and she'd also met and was being pursued by another professional athlete, retired NBA player Charles Shackelford.
Okay.
Do you know him?
No.
I don't either.
I think that's maybe a little before my time.
However, according to Candace, she learned of Rae's relationship with Cherica. She warned him, quote, I heard she was a gold digger.
Are you going to finish that?
That's just what she told him. She was like, I heard she was a gold digger. Well, Rae didn't seem receptive to discussing Cherica. Later, he would confide that Cherica was allegedly pregnant. He then told Candace that he didn't believe the baby was his and he was going to ask her to have an abortion. Rae claimed she'd only called him about a week after they'd had sex. He explained that he was paying for a child in California and he did not have any interest in paying for a second baby.
Well, then wrap it up, Rae.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
Is even if she is, which I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but this is what, this other dancer, and I guess, in these strip clubs, they're kind of known to each other. They have reputations, what have you. So even if she was, my attitude is, well, what are you doing putting it in everybody? Why are you throwing it in there, Rae?
quit throwing it.
Don't throw it in there. Wrap it up.
Quit throwing the salami.
Yeah.
No, so here's the thing. It doesn't matter if they're stripper
personal responsibility
or whatever. None of that matters. You're having these sexual encounters with multiple women, or even if it's just one, you have to be responsible and be like, okay, they can get pregnant.
Well, that's the thing, Rae.
It might not be what
he's not taking any personal responsibility for his part in getting these women pregnant. It's like it's all on them.
It doesn't matter if you want that or not. You can't just be like, yeah, well, I'm not into, I'm not into paying for that, or I just don't want to deal with a kid. Then, then you should. The only way to guarantee that is to abstain from having sex.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Or practice safe sex.
Or only have sex if you're in a committed relationship where you don't mind starting a family with someone. So, I mean, it's just...
well, not only that, but Rae, you nasty. Like, wrap that shit. You're fucking all these different women, and you're just, like, throwing it in them, and with that... I mean, come on, dude. That's how you end up with your dick falling off.
I bet Rae smell like some badussy. Don't you?
I don't even know what that is. What?
You know what badussy is?
I don't.
Don't make me say it.
I'm not even going to ask.
Do you want to know what it means?
No, I have a good idea now, and I don't... Let's not... I don't want to continue.
Well, I couldn't say it all the way anyway.
Just shut up, dude.
I'm just saying.
I'm firing you. Stop.
It's like stale cigarettes.
Shh. Be silent.
You shush me, you shum bitch.
The dog even looked up at you in disgust. When the matter came up again, Rae told Candace some weeks later that Cherica was telling people she would be set up for life. He had asked her to have an abortion, but she had told him in no uncertain terms that she was going to have this baby. Cherica had an abortion before, and it was not something she wanted to do again. It had weighed on her pretty heavily.
Well, I'm sure that's quite a thing to go through, no matter what reasons or any of that. It just, I mean, how could it not? It'd be a tough thing to do. I mean, honestly.
Well, Rae seemed to think that Cherica was a gold digger trying to hook him for thousands. Candace explained he was a professional athlete having unprotected sex with a lot of women, and he was playing a dangerous game. She had also begun seeing Shackelford regularly, so their relationship kind of ended, but they did keep contact as friends, she and Rae.
So she was just like, wasn't kidding herself about the type. She'd been realistic about the type of relationship she had with Rae.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's a good way for anyone to approach a relationship. Don't lie to yourself. If you are just hooking up and hanging out and you're okay with that, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But don't be doing that and then thinking, oh, you know what, doing all the jealousy thing because you knew that person was a certain way or whatever. If you're around them, it's not hard to figure out.
Candace will come up later in our story as well. According to Candace, there was an incident one evening during a preseason game. Candace drove her car to Rae's and then picked up his Ford Expedition with plans to leave it in the parking lot for Rae. She met Rae at the family entrance at the stadium along with Luther Broughton and his family. At the time, Cherica drove up with a friend. Rae tried avoiding her by getting into his SUV. He drove to a brewery where he was planning to have dinner with everyone. And Cherica called his cell phone asking, "Rae, who is that bitch in the car with you?"
Oh, my God.
He explained she was a friend doing him a favor. Cherica called him several times. Rae ignored the calls. The brewery was closed, so the party decided to go to IHOP, and Luther called to say, quote, "The crazy lady is following us."
So Cherica is making a scene.
Well, there's going to be a scene in a second. The IHOP had a lengthy wait, so they went to Skyland Restaurant. Cherica followed them. She came inside and told Rae she needed a word. His friends watched through a window as he had a heated discussion with Cherica in the parking lot. After 30 minutes, Candace went to the parking lot and told Rae he needed to join his guests. When she interrupted, Cherica, now this is according to Candace, was demanding money. Cherica asked Rae if he was trading one stripper for another.
Oh, shit.
The conversation erupted with Cherica and Candace getting into a verbal altercation.
Two rather attractive strippers fighting in an IHOP or a Skyline parking lot.
Calm down. I know what you're thinking.
Tell me more.
Yeah,
A tit's
I know.
coming out. I know it. God, every man thinks that, even if you try not to. And it's just like, it's not cool to even do that.
Fight or be sexualizing these women.
Sexualizing women if they're about to get in a fight.
As they're yelling at each other like, bitch, I don't care if you're pregnant. I'm going to stomp your ass.
I'm saying every guy that's seeing this is
And the other
thinking,
one's like, fuck you, I'm going to punch you in the throat.
I might see a boob or a butt cheek out of this. And that's just not cool. It's not cool, but it happens. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't happen.
You're bad, Dylan. You're no longer my podcast host. I'm very disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed in that too, honestly.
Rae remained in the middle of the pair, calmly trying to keep the women from fighting. Then Luther came outside with security guards who asked Cherica and Rae to leave. After this, he told Candace, quote, I should get somebody to go over there and kick her in the stomach and make her have a miscarriage.
Oh, come on, Rae.
Yeah. She was taken aback by the comments. After that, Candace realized the relationship with Rae was never going to work out and left.
So she was just like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's went too far. That's just, I don't want to be around someone like that.
Pretty much, yeah. When Rae was injured, he'd made friends with a guy named Michael Kennedy, and it had actually happened when Kennedy had complimented Rae's rims.
Ooh. Hey, nice rims, Rae.
We're going to be friends.
Did you get them down the corner rim shop?
Do we just become best friends?
Are those financed or did you pay cash?
If we take them rims off, we'll have more room for activities. Well, Kennedy was a crack cocaine dealer.
Oh, cool.
Kennedy's best friend was another low-level dealer named Stanley Abraham, nicknamed Boss.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, obviously, Stanley Abraham translates into boss. I mean, it's the first thing I think.
So by 1999, Rae was hanging out with this bad crowd, if you will. 2 drug dealers. He's got all this time on his hands. He's injured. He's not really playing football.
Yeah, so he doesn't have that structure and to keep him occupied and it's like for the first time he's kind of running around with some knuckleheads and just just spinning his wheels.
Cherica told her friends that Rae was a wannabe bad boy who seemed attracted to the dark side. Now, in spring of 1999, we're kind of backtracking just a little bit here. Rae had gotten a pit bull puppy. He needed to have a fence built. He called his real estate agent, who suggested a reasonably priced handyman named Van Watkins. Watkins went by the nickname New York.
These people and their nicknames.
And he was also a bouncer at a Charlotte strip club. Watkins came out to the house to give Rae an estimate on building a fence for the dog. Now, we got to talk about Van Watkins, Dylan.
Okay.
He had a long rap sheet, including gun charges and violent assaults. He had served time in prison while living in New York for attempted assault and possession of a weapon. He just was all over the place. He went back to prison for criminal mischief and grand theft auto charges. Then he went to prison again for threatening his wife with a meat cleaver and kidnapping her.
I'll cut you up.
So just in and out of jail, doing this dumb, violent shit. During one of his prison stints, he had gotten mad at an inmate who was talking shit about his mama and his sister and his, grandmama. So he set the man on fire.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'll fix him.
Watkins stabbed his brother during an argument.
So this guy's violent and just doesn't give a damn, right?
There's no other way to say it, Dylan. Watkins was a thug who used violence often. He divided his time between Charlotte and Atlanta because he also worked as a drug mule. He rented a room in this rundown motel near the airport. He sometimes worked detailing cars, and as I mentioned, he earned money transporting drugs and stolen items from Georgia to North Carolina. Watkins never built a fence for Rae, but did sometimes clean and detail his Expedition or Mercedes. Watkins claimed he was a hitman who had murdered 4 men in New York, Miami, and Atlanta. He had been hired by women who were abused or were just sick of their man's shit.
Oh, he's like the equalizer.
He's like the equalizer, but like not in a good way.
No, and having to be paid.
Right. And he's not as sexy as Denzel.
Or the old white man played the original one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I don't care about
He was British or
I
some
don't really
shit.
care about an old crusty white man. I done got one of them at home.
He's a fucking equalizer, bro. We'll just say Charlie Bronson. He wasn't an equalizer, but...
June 23rd of 1999, Rae met Watkins at a U-Haul store in Charlotte. So get this, Watkins didn't have a driver's license or a vehicle, but he had a friend who would rent him this U-Haul truck for like $100 a month. And that's what he drove around in.
Okay.
Yeah, but he also used it to like transport drugs and the stolen shit from Atlanta to North Carolina.
So he'd just keep a U-Haul.
Just keep a U-Haul.
Now, so, that's kind of smart because, I mean, you know what I mean? Do the cops even give... Do you give a second glance to someone in a U-Haul? You just be like, oh, they're moving for the day or
I
whatever?
just roll my eyes like, oh, fuck, they're moving here. Great.
Well, yeah.
One more asshole.
You know what blows my mind is they will cut you loose in like a 25-foot long box truck.
Dude, I've driven multiple big-ass U-Haul and budget trucks. So you know they'd be giving them to just anybody if they'll let me
And
drive
yeah,
one.
you've never, people that have never been in even a large vehicle, a big SUV, and here they are heading down the road in this damn 3-ton truck or
Look,
some
I'm
shit.
a really good driver when it comes to these moving trucks, and I have many a girlfriend who's moved, and they call me, hey, will you please come drive my U-Haul?
Okay.
And I'm like, bitch, you know I will.
So this is known in your circle of friends
Yeah.
that you can drive the U-Haul.
Yeah, I'm like the snowman. That's my second Smokey and the Bandit reference for the night.
Good job.
So Rae tells Watkins, I have a problem. Van Watkins asks, what kind of problem? And Rae proceeded to tell him the problem was a pregnant girl. He explained to Watkins that he wasn't sure of the baby's paternity, but she insisted on having it. He then asked Watkins if he could help him out. Rae suggested that Watkins physically attack Cherica to make her lose the baby. Well, at first, Watkins was like, yeah, right. But Rae offered to bring him money. Like, I can bring you money right now. And Watkins was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't hit girls. This is not the kind of thing I'm trying to do. I've killed people and whatever, but it's usually men. I mean, he did chase his wife with a meat cleaver, but I guess that was different.
I mean, do hitmen sit around bragging about killing people?
I guess.
Or I would think they wouldn't tell anybody they
when
murdered.
They're fucking dumbasses, they do.
Because there's no statute of limitations on murder.
Look, we're not dealing with this is not Leon the Professional.
It's not Leon the Professional.
No, you're so sleepy over there. You got to get through this with me.
I'm here.
So at first, Watkins was like, yeah, right, whatever. And then Rae offers him money, and Watkins was like, okay, I'll take $300 as a retainer and $3,000 to do the job. Now, they agreed after the confirmation that Cherica had miscarried and the baby was gone that Rae would pay another $3,000.
So $6,300.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in the coming months, Rae was trying to execute a plan to make Cherica miscarry without it being tracked back to him or traced back to him. Since he had wanted the baby, it would be obvious if somebody beat her up. And he just couldn't quite work the plan out in his head,
That's
like
'cause
how
it's a stupid plan.
he could make this happen or pull this off without implicating the self. And supposedly Watkins starts stalking Cherica, like following her, trying to see what her schedule's like.
Man, he's doing a lot of work for this little bit of money.
I agree.
And what kills me is oftentimes in these murder for hire schemes, it's not a lot of money. People like $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to jail for you for $5,000.
I'm risking everything on this to kill someone for you. Dude, we're going to have to start at like a $500,000 a meal
Yeah, exactly.
before I even consider
I'm
it.
staring down the death penalty. I want like damn $750,000.
Man, I remember one time it was one of those, where the undercover cop busts the people in the murder for hire.
On Craigslist.
It was the parents. You remember that one? They were going to give him like their son's big nice stereo. You know, it's back in the day, stereo was everything. You know, you have the big nice stereo with the concert speaker.
Okay.
They were going to give him his stereo and like $1,500. And they were just like pissed because he wouldn't like move out and get a job and shit.
I think I remember that maybe.
I'm like, what the hell, dude? You're going to kill somebody for a stereo? His stereo.
Must be a really nice stereo.
Oh, it was, I'm sure. Big Kenwood receiver. Yeah. Jamming.
Okay. So for Rae, one of the hardest parts would be telling his mom that she was going to be a grandmother for a second time. Theodore had wanted Rae to meet a nice girl, settle down, get married. If she asked any questions about Cherica, he wouldn't even know where to begin because he felt like he didn't even really know her at all. And I think Rae, deep down, he's a mama's boy. He don't want to, like, upset his mama. For whatever reason, Rae called Cherica in hopes of working out their issues. He began accompanying her to doctor's appointments and Lamaze classes. He cut her a check for $1,200 for expenses that she had incurred to date. Then he went out to buy nursery furniture for his home. A sonogram revealed they'd be having a son. And since Rae already had a son in California with his name, Cherica wanted a unique name. She chose Chancellor because of the regal sound. Rae would later say he didn't even know Cherica's last name until they went to Lamaze class.
Damn.
And she'd signed in.
If that's true.
Yeah, I mean, they just really didn't know each other. I mean, he was like, she told me when we first met, but I hadn't remembered.
Yeah, and
because in his mind, he wasn't thinking this was anything serious.
Right.
Entering into his third season with the NFL, Rae was determined to get back on track. During training, he strained a ligament. His medical advisors told him to sit out on the first preseason game. In the first games of the season against New Orleans and Jacksonville, Rae didn't play well at all. In the third game against the Cincinnati Bengals, which at the time had a terrible record, they were considered like one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Rae was underwhelming on the field.
So Rae just can't get his shit together.
Then during a game against the 49ers, Rae injured his leg again with a bad sprain. So he would be sitting out once again for the next few games. Another blow came when he realized that investment he made with Tank Black was a Ponzi scheme. Rae wasn't the only NFL player to get burned, but he lost a lot of money. A federal investigation was launched into the fraud, and like the FBI came calling.
Damn.
Yeah, so Rae's like lost all of that sign-on bonus, basically.
So who thought you couldn't trust a guy named Tank? Right?
Just
To
can't,
go on a business venture that is a car title loan place that's just exploiting the shit out of people that don't have money.
I feel like a guy named Tank would always talk about himself in the third person.
Yeah, Tank don't play when it comes to business.
The tank needs fuel.
You know, like just a dumbass. Anyway, somebody named Tank is listening right now like,
The tank says, fuck y'all.
Tank can't help parents named him.
The tank's gonna write a bad review.
Feeling his life was...
Tank tried to like this podcast.
Tank doesn't like that female host.
Okay, so feeling his life was spinning out of control. His football career was flailing. There was a disconnect with his teammates since he wasn't out on the field. He lost his fortune, and now there was a second baby on the way. He called Van Watkins again. Over the next few days, he made these incremental payments to Van for his services. And he was doing it in these like incremental payments because he didn't want to be able to trace that money back. Like if he took a big chunk of money out.
Right.
So he was taking out like 150, 200, 300 at different ATMs over the course of like some days.
Thinks he's being smart.
Thinks he's being slick. On November 16th of 1999, Rae arranged a date with Cherica Adams. They went to see the movie The Bone Collector.
Ooh.
After the movie, Rae drove his Expedition with Cherica following behind in her black BMW. Cherica had been excited about this date because after all, like things hadn't been that great between the two of them. They hadn't spent much time together, especially not like romantically, in quite a while.
Yeah, so she thinks maybe the relationship can get back to when it was fun or something, right?
Yeah, or that, you know, maybe just Rae was starting to come around. There might be potential there. When the vehicles were driving along Rae Road, which is a partially unlighted two-lane highway, In those days, at this hour, which was just after midnight, there was little traffic on this road. Suddenly, Carruth slowed down at what was described as a large dip in the road. Cherica was essentially ambushed in a drive-by shooting by 3 unknown assailants in a gold Nissan Maxima.
What the hell?
As soon as the gunfire began, Rae sped away, leaving the woman shot and bleeding in her car.
So I forgot she was in the second vehicle. Okay.
Cherica managed to make a dramatic phone call to 911 despite sustaining 3 shotgun wounds to the back and 1 to her neck.
Jesus.
This phone call is so pitiful. During the call, she indicated she thought her boyfriend, Rae Carruth, might be responsible. The call is hard to hear. Cherica, obviously in excruciating pain, still manages to sound sweet.
Damn.
Yeah. I listened to that call, and we've talked about this before, Dylan. We're not a fan of 911 calls.
Well, I think it's a very personal moment, and I really don't think it should be, I should be listening to it, in any kind of an entertainment capacity.
Yeah.
Even if it's a shock value or anything.
Listening to her phone call was heartbreaking.
No, because when
I
anybody
teared up.
calls 911
It was
tip and it's a real emergency or something
tough to
like
hear.
this, yeah.
Once she arrived at Carolina's Medical Center in Charlotte, doctors delivered her son via emergency C-section. Chancellor Lee was premature and had cerebral palsy. Cherica lapsed into a coma. But before that happened, we have some interesting stuff to talk about. So after the shooting, we're going to take a moment away from the hospital scene, talk about Rae a little bit. So after the shooting, Rae began setting up an alibi. He called a girlfriend in Atlanta to catch up. Right after the shooting, he's driving off on the cell phone talking to this girl in Atlanta.
So, hey, what are you doing?
Then he went to a friend, Hannibal Navy's house, where they played video games. When Hannibal and his girlfriend Tanya went to bed, Rae was like, I can let myself out. I'm going to finish up this game. But instead, he used her phone to call Van Watkins, then Kennedy, to ask how the hit had gone.
Oh, my God.
To further establish an alibi, he called Candace Smith, inviting her to the Waffle House for breakfast. This was at 1:30 a.m. He had tried borrowing her car earlier in the evening because he was looking for a car to use in this hit.
Yeah, he's trying to, just like using his friend's, phone to call these other co-conspirators.
Well, he had asked her to borrow her car, and she was like, fuck no, you're not borrowing my car. Because she was like, I don't know what you're trying to get into, but no. And she was smart.
Well, yeah, you have a perfectly fine car of your own. Why would you want to borrow mine?
Exactly. So then when he was on his way to meet Candace, that his pager beeped, and it was a number he did not recognize. But it beeped a couple of different times. So he was like, what the hell? He pulls over, calls on his cell phone, this phone number, and that is how Rae learned from Cherica Adams that Cherica was in the hospital.
Damn.
Now, he didn't know how to get to Carolina's medical center, so he had to turn around. He went back to his friend Hannibal's house, woke up Hannibal and Tanya asking them, do you guys know how to get to the hospital? They were like, I'm not sure we know where that is, but we'll go with you. So the 3 head out to the hospital.
Well, yeah, it's not like today when you just punch it in your phone and go straight there.
Then he called Candace to cancel their Waffle House plans and tells her, Cherica's been shot. I have to go to the hospital. So then she goes to the hospital, trying to support her friend.
I bet Rae is like, this shit's not working out for me.
Well, at the hospital, Cherica's parents confront Rae about his involvement in the shooting. They flat up ask him, did you do this?
And that would be very awkward.
Flat out, straight up, we think you did something. Well, he denied having anything to do with it. And they had no evidence to the contrary, so they let up on this hard line of questioning. But the whole family is looking at him like, you piece of shit. They all think he was involved. Her cousins, her sisters, everybody.
Well, I guess because he'd been contentious about the paternity of the baby or her having the baby. I'm sure she's relayed that information to her, friends and family, that he always acting like this. He wants me to have an abortion, but I'm going to have the kid. He doesn't want to pay child support. I mean, these are red flags,
After the shooting, Van Watkins disposed of the gun, rubber gloves, and a black ski mask on down the road. Michael Kennedy dropped off his friend Boss, Stanley Abram, at the Red Lion convenience store, and then Watkins at his truck. That's when Michael Kennedy decided he needed to establish an alibi for himself, so he drove to Stanley, North Carolina, where his girlfriend lived. Investigators quickly pieced together this was not a robbery. Cherica's credit cards and wallet were still in the car. And the most damning piece of evidence were Cherica's own words as she spoke for 12 minutes to the 911 operator. Police arrived at the hospital where Rae was asked to make a statement. Now, the whole time, Cherica's family was voicing concerns that somehow Rae was involved. Now, I should also mention that Candace came to the hospital to support Rae, which is not a good look, right? Your baby mama on life support while this former girlfriend is just like hanging out. Not to mention that Candace and Cherica had that fight in the parking lot when they're like threatening each other.
No.
I mean, come on. This is really tacky.
It's very tacky, and I would just be like, girl, you need to go on somewhere.
Now, according to Candace, who will later testify, Rae confessed at the hospital that he'd been paying Watkins to carry out the hit. What Rae didn't know is police were able to interview Cherica before she fell into a coma.
They weren't?
They were able to.
Oh.
The woman wrote answers to their questions on a piece of paper, and she implicated Rae as being involved.
Well, there you go.
She was like, the minute they started shooting, he takes off. His story is they went in opposite directions, so he didn't know what happened. But she was like, I was following him. He slowed down.
He slowed down, almost like he slowed down to stop her in a certain position.
Exactly.
And then he takes off. He doesn't double back. He's not worried about my well-being. None of that. So, I mean, even if he hadn't said all these things about not having a child and all this would make me very suspicious of any of this behavior.
From the start of the investigation, Charlotte police identified Rae Carruth as the primary suspect. Cherica's 911 call and written statement were huge, Dylan. They were huge. A look into Carruth's phone records showed a number of exchanges between him, Michael Kennedy, and Van Watkins. The conspirator with the worst record was Van Watkins. After police questioned him, they left him overnight in his jail cell with the words, quote, "If Cherica Adams dies, are you willing to risk the death penalty for Rae Carruth?"
Oh.
It was a tried and true tactic, and it worked eventually.
Apparently the answer was no.
Police tracked down that Nissan Maxima, a rental, that was used in the shooting. And Michael Kennedy had rented the car. It was in his name.
Well, this just doesn't seem like a good plan. It
Not
doesn't
at
seem
all.
well thought out. And, of course, you shouldn't be trying to kill people anyway.
So later, Michael Kennedy will testify that Rae phoned him hours before the movie date trying to put this plan into motion, which is something that the defense attorneys will use as part of their strategy.
Yeah.
Is that if you were hiring a hitman, if you were planning out an execution, are you literally going to be calling like an hour before it's supposed to happen to say, hey, can you get a car? I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but then again, we are dealing with some knuckleheads, some shitbirds.
By the way, I thought it'd be best if we had a car and weren't walking when we tried to ambush someone. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah. He didn't even have a gun. So when Watkins had come over to Rae's house, like before this plan was supposed to, go into effect, like, hey, in a couple hours, we're going to shoot this woman. He didn't even bring a gun with him. Some hitman, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Rae gave Michael Kennedy $100 to go find a gun.
A hot gun off the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're not dealing with smart people here. Okay? It was Thanksgiving morning when police swarmed Rae's house with an arrest warrant. He was in bed with a new love interest, Tanisha Huckleberry.
Who?
Rae had the audacity to answer the door butt-ass naked.
Well, that does make a statement.
Yeah.
I've decided if the cops come to my door and
You're going to give them an eyeful?
I'm just going to answer the door naked because they're likely just going to tell you to carry on about your business and leave.
You think so?
Yeah, they don't want to get into all the body fluids and stuff, and you're naked. Unless you got that one cop who's like into it and they already got rubber gloves on.
Dude. I got to tell a story at the end of this episode.
Okay.
I dated a cop.
Yeah.
And he told me about one of the worst like calls he made. It's just as far as like weird and awkward. I have to tell you about it.
Okay.
Okay, it rivals just being naked, answering the door.
Damn.
Okay. Now, of course, Rae's arrest drew a media blitz at the jail. Local news channels blasted the salacious headline, Rae Carruth, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, has been arrested for masterminding the murder of his pregnant girlfriend, Cherica Adams.
That's a pretty good headline.
At the bond hearing, people were shocked. Well, this is, so at the bond hearing, people were shocked that the judge granted a $3 million bond. Because they were like, seriously, you're just going to like let this guy walk? I mean, he's dangerous, whatever. But he could scrape together that money. He did.
He did scrape the money
Yeah,
together?
he was able to like show income from that title loan company.
Ah.
Which was money he didn't actually have, but he could show income from it. So it looked like he had enough money to cover the debt, even though he didn't. And it was like under investigation. But technically it looked like he
used that alleged profit for collateral to the bond.
His co-conspirators, however, were given $1.5 million bonds, so they sat in jail. It was his ex-girlfriend, Amber Turner, who also made a big break in the case. Amber flew to Charlotte to be with Rae, and when she arrived, she discovered Tanisha Huckleberry at the house where she had once lived. So she went from being like woman of the house to like a house guest. She wasn't feeling it.
Man, Rae, dude, he don't fuck around.
Okay, Rae kept a shoebox with photos of like the women that he was with. And there was something like 30 or 50 photographs in there.
Ooh.
Because the thing is, he seemed to like to keep them in rotation. Like he had multiple booty calls. Because he never ended relationships with these women. He just sort of like would recycle through sex with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds very romantic, honestly.
It does. So, Dylan, we're going to leave the episode here, and we're going to come back with part 2, where we get into the trial and the aftermath.
Yeah, and I think some of this is where you're going to maybe give us some information that we might not know, and so I want to be fully rested and aware, and so I can partake in that. Because I find it very interesting. But this has been a very good in-depth story. I never knew the entire story, and it just sounds like a lot of poor decisions.
A lot of poor decisions.
Yes.
So can I real quick tell you the story? It is so weird and gross.
Yeah, I want to know now. You got me curious.
Okay. So I dated this cop. And like we had this, kind of serious thing for a
I bet
while.
you did.
You know I did, so shut up. Okay, so he told me this story, and it is so like weird and gross. They got a call. There had been like a domestic situation between a husband and wife, right? And she was like, I've left the house, but he's there. I need you to go over there, whatever. So the cops, my boyfriend at the time, and this other officer go to the house and knock on the door. And it takes a couple of minutes for someone to answer. And when they do, I guess the husband answers. And he's like sweaty and seems sort of like,
disheveled.
Disheveled. He's in disarray.
He's breathing hard.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, he's in there with his friend, a guy friend. They're talking to him, whatever. The guy friend, also sweaty, out of breath, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they're like, I guess, find out the guy has a warrant, so they want to arrest him. I think the friend, when they got his information, they're like, okay, well, you've got a warrant, whatever. So they're going to arrest him. Well, he's like, well, before we go, I have to use the restroom. Then they confess that homeboy had a fight with his wife, and then the two of them started watching porn together. They got kind of turned on and started having sex with each other. But now this has only happened this one time.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And then the one guy, I guess, who was getting the sex done to him, then had to go to the bathroom with explosive diarrhea.
Okay.
Right? And so he was like, I have to go to the bathroom or I'm going to shit in your car. And so, of course, the officers were like, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So the cop's like standing kind of outside the door, but he has to keep the door open to make sure the guy's like not escaping or something while he's doing his business.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. Well, then like he gets arrested. They take him to jail while the other guy's just standing there like all sweaty and like breathy and like,
Call me.
I swear this only happened this one time.
Yeah,
like, all
it's weird, man. I
embarrassed.
was watching this porn, and next thing you know.
Yeah.
That's a weird story.
It like left a mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll never forget that. You'll never unsmell that.
Can I just share that? Because it was weird.
Oh, yeah. It's been shared.
I mean, I don't care what they were doing, but it's just like the whole, you have to admit that to cops.
Yeah, they could have
And
kept
then
that.
explain that, like, now I have to go take a...
Well, I mean...
Now I have to go take a two?
Well, it does give a little bit of a credence to what you're saying, because a lot of people might be like, oh, I want to go, just bullshitting with the cops. And cops will be like, no, you're not going to change shirts or whatever, get in the car. But what he let them know that, look, this just happened, and this is going to happen. It's just a matter of where. Right?
Yeah, so that's like the grossest thing I'm going to leave you with.
Yeah, and I can't say crotch. And you're talking about explosive gay sex diarrhea?
You say the grossest stuff on the show, so now I get to be gross.
Okay.
All right?
We're equal opportunity. Not that there's anything wrong with gay sex, by the way. Or that was porn. That was hetero gay sex. What was... Nah, anyway.
It was one time, Dylan.
let's just go.
It sounds like it was bisexual sex.
Before, yeah. Well, it's just... which
Anyway,
is fine.
you know
There's
what?
nothing wrong
They
with that.
were pleasuring each other.
Two consenting adults can do anything. Just leave the horses out of it.
Just when you watch porn with your friends, which is very weird to me, just get all excited. You got to take care of it.
I never watched porn with anybody.
Just don't eat Taco Bell before this happens.
Have you ever just sat around watching porn, like, just regular?
You mean like with a friend or just by myself?
Just, like, watching...
Like I'm just doing chores and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
Debbie Does Dallas.
Do you watch porn if you're not actively masturbating?
I love
That's what I'm asking you.
the plots.
I don't. I've never seen more than 2 minutes of a porn.
Well, I mean, some of them are kind of funny.
Well, I mean, there's that.
I like to look up the most ridiculous stuff. And
Okay.
then I'm like, hey, Dylan, you should come watch this. And then you're like, I don't want to watch that. I'm like, but look, it's a clown.
Okay.
But look what he's doing with Rubber Chicken.
Well, Heather's going to put me in bed, but we hope you enjoyed this episode.
We will be back with part 2, the trial. It is something else.
Oh, that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Mountain Murders. You can always send us an email, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. Find us on social media. And if you want to support the show, drop us a 5-star review. Hit subscribe wherever you listen. We appreciate you, and we'll be back soon.